God is looking for you to do the job in a way that no one else can do it. No one else can cover for you. Yes, someone else can run that leg. Yes, someone else can fulfill that position. But you were the first choice for a reason. You were chosen as a starter for a reason. Nobody else can completely do what you do. You're graduating. You may do something for your family that no one else can do. You may be the first to get that degree. You may be able to take your people out of the hood. You may be able to reach academic heights or professional levels that no one could have ever imagined, and no one else can do it like you. When fathers and mothers aren't doing their job, somebody else can sub, but that was supposed to be you. When that failing ministry is really getting down to the end of it and somebody's just trying to keep it together while you sit back comfortably, that was supposed to be you. Adults and youth, you're just going, I understand you're going to have fun this summer. You're just going to hang out. You're going to talk to this girl or that boy or that man or that woman. You're going to go some places you probably shouldn't go and do some things you'll never admit that you did. And all the while, no one is growing and no one's getting closer to God and no one is doing what they can do to be better. And all the while, there's someone growing in Christ and living a blessed life. That was supposed to be you. God has you in this place at this time for a reason. And it's too easy to mess it up by not realizing that the job is really on your back. You are not in the wrong place. Young people, as bad as things may seem at times in your life, you're not in the wrong place. This is your job. Look, you're the only one that can get the job done. There's really nobody else that can cover for you. I know. You're trying to figure out what does this have to do with this text message. Fine, and explanation is necessary. In the time before kings, follow me. In the time before kings, the people of Israel had leaders that were called judges. All right? Before kings, there were judges. They were mainly military-style leaders. The last judge in the book of Judges was this guy who was really messed up by the name of Samson. Samson had problems. He is easily one of the most problematic characters in the Bible that God actually uses. An angel announced his birth and that he would be a Nazarite or a consecrated or a separate special man when he grew up. Nazarites wouldn't cut their hair and they had to abide by certain laws. And Samson had the gift of having a ridiculous amount of strength that came from not cutting his hair. Now listen, the story is long and I don't want to go into the whole thing, but to understand just how messed up Samson is, you really need to go back to about chapter 13 and read up on who he was. He was a Nazarite, but he always had a thing. He really had a woman problem, specifically a Philistine woman problem. He always wanted Philistine women. He did unclean things and actually got his parents to do unclean things without them knowing they were doing it. He lost a bet on a riddle and killed 30 men just to steal from them what he owed to pay off his debt. He set fields on fire because he couldn't get his wife back after she left for a good reason. His own people tied him up and turned him in to the Pharisees. He kills 1,000 men with an unclean jawbone, and then he still keeps going down to Gaza. He goes down and he gets himself a prostitute, and then he falls in love with another woman by the name of Delilah. Now, this is where the story gets interesting. Delilah is this Philistine woman. Now, obviously, he has a woman problem, but Delilah keeps asking him over and over again, "Hey, Samson, what makes you so strong?" And he keeps lying to her. He tells her it's something random. If you tie me up in brand new ropes, then I can't break free. And she would have Philistine soldiers waiting in the house. And she would tie him up at night in new ropes. And then say, "Samson, the Philistines are coming." He would wake up and break the ropes. And then she would go, "Oh, Samson, why'd you lie to me? If you really loved me, you wouldn't do that. So tell me again, what makes you so strong?" And he would come up with something else. "Well, if you put my braids in this certain device, then I lose my strength." And he would go to sleep, and she would put his braids in the device and then say, "Samson, the Philistines are coming." And he would wake up and break free, and then she would go, "Why'd you lie to me, Samson?" And she did this 4 times until finally he got so bothered and so annoyed, he finally told her the truth. If you cut my hair, I lose all of my strength. Ultimately, Delilah cuts his hair. She yells, the Philistines are coming. He loses all his strength, so he can't fight back. They grab him. They take him. They put him really in the prison where he was really dealing with grinding grain or something like that, I believe, and they end up gouging his eyes out. And now he's just being laughed at. And at some big celebration, they have Samson just tied up by these pillars as they're just enjoying the fact that, we got this guy who killed all of our men. And Samson's last act is he asks a young man, can you put my hand on the other pillar so I can lean up against it? And he asks, God, my last prayer is that you will give me the strength to push down these pillars, to kill all of these men and kill myself in the act. And Samson pushes down the pillars and everybody dies. That's Samson's story. It's not a pretty story by far. Not at all. So with a guy like this, he shows us several times over what not to do when you're the only one to get the job done. There's no other judge to take his place. When he's gone, he's gone. You got to wait for the next one. So now the people of Israel have nobody to lead them, no one to fight for them. So obviously, with a guy like that, I figured I would use my spiritual imagination to talk to the character, as I tend to do from time to time. I said, yo, Samson, what's good? Samson said, straight, what you need. I said, hey, man, listen, I don't want to bother you too much. I'm sure that you're tired of people talking about this situation, but, hey, you got to tell me what happened, man. I mean, you had so much promise. And Samson goes, yeah, I mean, listen, what it comes down to is I didn't really know who I was. I said, wow, hey, man, hold on for a second. Stop. Point 1, and these are not going to be on the screen, so you're going to have to remember these or write these down. Ha! Point 1, when you're the only one that gets the job done. Number 1, know who you are. When you're the only one that gets the job done. Number 1, know who you are. I know an explanation is still necessary. Samson was aware of his power, but he never lived the life that makes you think he understood just how special he was. Everything he did was for personal reasons. He constantly chased women he shouldn't have been chasing. He didn't care about being clean or unclean. He didn't live like he knew how special he was. This is a problem that many of us have as well. If we only knew our value. Many of us live life like we are here by chance. But God ordained that you would be right here, right now. You are worth too much to spend time taking your life too lightly. We are worth more than just being another body in the hallway or another body at a cubicle. That's fine for your day job, but God wants to use you for something much more. See, many times what happened to Samson happens to us. God used Samson's foolishness and bad decisions to still carry out what God wanted. But that doesn't mean that what Samson did was right or okay. He was still messing up. And if we're not careful, we do the same thing. We think that although we messed up and did stuff we weren't supposed to do, that since things worked out, that everything we did is okay and that we can do it again. And that's wrong. You have to live your life like the valuable person that you are. There are young people and adults right here in this house that aren't living up to what God has for them because we don't know who we are, or we don't feel that we have that much value. I was reading a comment that Bill Cosby made talking about meeting with some kids at a school in Philly. And it reads that Cosby recounted to this author a conversation among teenage boys he visited in a classroom. The boys told him they did not expect to live beyond the age of 28. Some of them said 25. Cosby says, if you don't expect to be alive beyond 25, it is easy to do certain things, like make a lot of babies without worrying about who's going to take care of them, said Cosby. You don't care if you give AIDS to a woman, and the women don't care if they have baby after baby because they don't believe they're going to be around to raise those babies. And what he's getting at is if you don't believe that you have some kind of value later on, you'll do anything right now. If I told anybody in the house, don't cut your hair or do anything to it for 5 years, you'll get $15 million. Everybody in this room would put your hairdresser and barber out of business. Unless you don't believe me. If you don't believe me, you're going to say, forget it. You're going to go ahead and get your hair cut. And then later on, you're going to wonder why everybody else got blessed and you didn't. One of the issues that we have is we have to believe we are worth something. We are valuable. Don't live a reckless life because you're supposed to be here later. Why? Because you're the only one that can get this job done. If you don't think you're going to be around, you'll never live up to your potential. I don't care what the world says. I don't care what teachers say. I don't care if your mother and your father said something wrong. God says that you are more than a conqueror. That if you look to God for help in bad times, that he will be there. That you can do all things through Christ. You have to know who you are and know your value. You're the only one that gets the job done. There's no one else that can cover for you. Now, side note, I have to say this because too many young girls are being influenced by this thing. There's this really, really strong growing side chick culture. Women who are really embracing this idea that I'm going to be the other woman. And there are statements that kind of say, you know, I'd rather be a side chick that knows I'm a side chick than be a loyal woman getting cheated on. That's the same thing, Pastor. I think that's the same thing. The only difference is one of you expects to be treated as a valuable person that she's worth, whereas the other one is comfortable in her worthlessness. Look, I'm going to say this and I'm going to move. People need to realize that side chicks and even side dudes are like the average sixth man in basketball. You bring good energy off the bench, Pastor. You bring good energy off the bench, but you'll never be good enough to be a permanent starter on that team. Just saying. You're a great sixth man, you know. Woo! We enjoy when you're on the court, but not every game, every season. That's not where we want you. So I'm just saying, just keep that stuff in mind. And the reason I bring that up, again, because it has to come back down to value. How do you value yourself? If God has so much for you, whether it's to be a great mother, or just to go on traveling, doing things, and you're caught up, tagged along with this man or this woman that's not even going to really commit to anything, look, you got to find where is your value, right? Where's your value? So number one was what? Cool. Hey, Samson, I'm back on the line. Samson says, yeah. I said, so, okay, so you didn't really know who you were. That's what led to your behavior. Samson said, yeah, I mean, it was always about me. I didn't know how to act. I said, wow, hold up one more time. Point two, when you're the only one that can get the job done. Point two, know how to act. Know how to act. I know an explanation is still necessary. Samson constantly did things that made it obvious that he didn't accept how valuable he was. But added to that, Samson didn't know how to act. When something didn't go his way, he lost it. He randomly killed a 30-man and robbed him to pay a debt. He burned the grain fields because the woman that he wanted, the father wouldn't let him get her. And you find that he constantly did this stuff. When you're the only one that gets the job done, you have to know how to act. And I don't only mean controlling your temper and your hormones. Yes, that would have helped Samson. But more than that, stop using God's blessings in your life for your personal reasons. Young people, adults, if God is giving you an opportunity to do something great, don't use it just to get what you want. Samson is one of the few characters in the Bible that everything he did was because he wanted to. Anybody he killed was because of something he said, somebody he ticked off. It was always about him. Remember that somebody else somewhere is depending on you using your gift. For Samson, it was the people of Israel. For you, it may be your parents or your children or your future family or your community or your friends or even the church. Someone needs to be blessed somewhere, and you have the ability to do that. But if you don't know how to act, not only are you going to mess yourself up and your future up, you're going to mess it up for others as well. Think about it. Samson was a judge. He was there to fight for his people. Samson did not have to die. Samson did not have to die. Samson made a bunch of bad decisions that got him in a bad situation. Whereas if he would have made different decisions in his life, he may not have ended up posted up between two pillars with one option: kill everybody in the house. But he didn't know how to act. There are people depending on you to succeed. You're the only one that can do what God has put in you to do. You may be able to help that sibling get it together. You may have what it takes to get your mother out of town or out of that relationship. You may have what it takes to take ministry to another level, but you can't use your gifts only for personal reasons. You have to know how to act. There is power in you, but you have to know that it's there and know the best way to use it. So number one was what? And number two is what? So I get Samson back on the line. I said, so Samson, I'm still trying to figure out what happened with Delilah. Don't say her name, Samson said. I hate her. My fault. But I got to ask, man, she asked you 4 times. Like, you had to know she was plotting. Samson said, look, man, I was in love. I said, yeah, but this is obvious. Samson said, listen, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I said, yeah, but how could you not see this coming? I mean, she was a Philistine. She kept asking questions. No one else could be a judge like you except you. I mean, I ain't saying she a gold digger, but Samson said, I told you I don't want to talk about it. I'm done with this conversation. And Hough, don't let me catch you in the street. And Samson said, click, and hung up on me. In my imagination. Point 3, when you're the only one that gets the job done. Number 3, cut them off. There's no mnemonic device here. I would like to make it rhyme or have some flow to it, but it just didn't work. It's tricky to rock a rhyme. To rock a rhyme that's right on time is tricky. It's tricky. I don't have it. Cut them off. The question here really is, who do you love? See, when you get emotionally caught up with something or someone too much, you will do things that are downright dumb. It's obvious what Delilah is trying to do, but Samson is so caught up with her that he can't see it. And he ends up giving the enemy what can kill him. Sometimes you just have to cut them off. Listen, when there's somebody or someone in your life that is pulling you away from what God has called you to be, cut them off early. Because if you wait too long, you will be too far into the problem. Imagine hugging somebody so close that you don't know they have a knife aimed at your back. Here's the real problem. Things in our life that we need to cut off are normally things that we like. They're temptations. We want it. Delilah fed directly into the model of the things that Samson liked. She was a Philistine woman. But whatever it is, the minute you realize that it's not helping you be who you are supposed to be, you need to create some distance. When I was a teenager, I had to cut people off in church. And this was as a teenager. And I was talking about my teenage friends. I had to cut my friends off, at least in church. I learned not to sit next to certain people because every time I sat next to them, I always missed something in the service. Now, they were my friends. Don't get me wrong. They were my friends. I'd hang out with them and everything. And I didn't want to cut them off. But as I was getting older and I realized, wait a minute, I really need to start listening to some of this stuff. You know, I wasn't 13 and 14 anymore. Like, now I'm going through some things. I'm 16, 17, like really trying to get my life together. I had to just separate myself and cut people off. Now, listen, I'm not going to get into your relationship business, but you know if you have some trimming to do. I'm not going to get into your habits and your tendencies, but you know if you have some trimming to do. First thing, admit that you're tempted. Number one, admit that you like it, admit that you want it, admit that you're tempted, and stop testing yourself with proximity. As I know it's a little poetic, but stop tempting yourself by getting too close to it. Samson had a flaw that took him down. He was the only one that could get the job done and ended up dying early because of something that he couldn't cut off. Graduates, you're going to have to cut some stuff off. Parents, youth, young adults, sometimes you got to cut some stuff off. It just is what it is. If you're going to really be who God wants you to be, you got to cut some stuff off. I don't want to drag it out too much. I'm going to keep on going. Number one was what? Yeah, y'all getting slow. Number two was what? Know how to act. There we go. And number three is what? Good, good. Now, if Samson doesn't do it for you, that's fine. Because there's someone else who got it right. There was another man who was born of a woman who wasn't supposed to be pregnant. Another woman with a husband that had some concerns about it. Another woman who was visited by an angel. And the son that she had, his name was Jesus. But Jesus knew who he was. Jesus knew how to act, always thinking about others. And Jesus knew how to keep the right people around him. Jesus also died between two malefactors with people making fun of him. But he didn't kill everybody when he died. Instead, his death offered everyone eternal life. So if there's anyone in here who has never accepted Jesus, let me be clear. If you've never accepted Jesus, I would say that today may be a good day to start. Because Jesus really is the only one that can get the job done. That's why we love him, because he's always there. That's why we praise, because he's always there. That's why we are here, because he's always there. That's why we call on him, because he's always there. Who do you love? I love Jesus, because he knows how to get the job done. For the graduates, take Jesus' example and run your race. Your diploma is your baton. You're the only one that can get the job done. For the youth, your education and family responsibility, even responsibility to your friends and your community, that's your baton. You're the only one that can get the job done. For the adults, your children, your family, your community, that's your baton. You're the only one that can get the job done. And for everybody, Jesus dying for us is our baton, and we need to live for him every chance we get. It's too real out here right now. There's too many deaths. There's too much homelessness. There's too much molestation and sexual abuse. Too much pain. Too much confusion. Too much depression. Too much sadness. Too much hurt. The world needs us to show up. And we need to show up so we can even encourage each other. We're the only ones that can get the job done. And once that responsibility is on you, once the baton is in your hand, it's just you out there trying to do what you were made to do in the first place. Live your life for God. I was talking about track when I was a sophomore in high school. I'm almost done. When I was a sophomore in high school, I had the opportunity to run in the city finals. I'm from Queens, New York, so it was New York City, the 5 boroughs. We were down in Spanish Harlem at the Armory. And I got out there, and mind you, it was my second year running. I wasn't really that savvy when it came to all the protocol and things like that. And my coach got us there late. We took the van, a lot of traffic. We went over the Whitestone Bridge, got in there late. So my race, my 2x4, or my 200, had already passed. So I'm like, man, this is horrible. Can't stand this. My coach says, well, that's all right. I'll put you in the 300. I said, now listen, coach, I don't run the 300, all right? I run a 200. I will run a 400 because that just means I can take it easy one lap and then speed it up on the next one. But I don't run the 300. 300 is a weird space. If you're used to burning out for one lap or taking it easy and then burning out for a lap, to try to burn it out for a lap in like a half, that's a little crazy. So I end up, he forces me to do it, I end up in this heat with everyone. And they just crammed, I don't know, I mean, it was 6 lanes. They crammed probably 15 people on that line. And the crowd is kind of elbowing each other. And people do dirty stuff, you know, while you're on the line. So We're sitting there. They blow the gun. We take off running. I get both of my shins bleeding from everybody spiking me and everything like that. And I finished the race. I don't know what place I finished. I didn't care because it was the 300. I finished the race, and I cramped up horribly, right? Pull LeBron, right? Like, I cramped up bad. Like, I couldn't walk back to my seat. Like, I stopped, and I couldn't. And everybody was like, let's go. And I was like, get off me. I can't, like, I could not move. I could not move. So it took me probably about 15, 20 minutes to finally work my way back to my seat. And I sat down very uncomfortably in the chair and just upset, period. Just upset. I cramped up because I was running the 300, and I don't run the 300. Coach says, Horace, you're in the finals. First time I ever been ticked off, I made it to the finals. I told him, I'm not running it. I can't stand up. I'm hurting. I'm in a lot of pain. I'm not running the finals. But he talked me into it. He said, look, man, you're in the finals and the city championship. Go ahead and do it. I said, all right. There were only 5 people in that race. Something happened to the 6th person. I don't know what happened to him. There were only 5 people in the race, and I had no friends at the meet. My parents weren't in the stands. It was just me. It was the last race before my team left to go on back to Queens, and I'm the only guy from the team. I'm standing there cramping. I can barely move. I don't know how I'm going to run. All at the time, 5'6", 98 pounds of me sitting there cramping on this line. I got this guy with a, full-grown beard, wife and kids in the stands from the public schools. This guy's tatted up on steroids, and I'm just like, this is horrible. I'm standing there waiting to lose this race. They blow the gun, I start running. And I wasn't even trying. I was just out there moving, right? Now, when I get around to the last turn, I see some other guy. He must have been cramping worse than me because he wasn't moving at all. So I was like, well, I'm going to pass you if you're going to be here. So I just passed him. I passed him, and I crossed the finish line. I didn't win. Obviously, I didn't win. But there was something interesting about that race. I found out afterwards that the first 4 places got a medal. I came in 4th. So although I didn't win the race was set up to where I got a reward just for finishing. I think some of y'all might have missed that. See, when you're the only one that gets the job done, it's not about competing with anybody else and what anyone else has done. It's about finishing the race. It's about doing the job. Samson, after all the things he did wrong, had one final thing he had to do. He called on God when he knew he had nothing left to finish his race. And if you just finish, you'll get the reward. Doing what God has put in front of you to do, no matter how bad it may be. You're the only one on the field. In the end, even Samson knew that you got to call on God to give you the strength to get through to the end. Listen, if you're going to college, finish the race. If you're in school, finish the race. If you're a father or a mother, finish the race. If you're in ministry, finish the race. You will be blessed because you did.